Welcome to episode, I think it's 6? Yeah, episode 6 of Tech Over Tea. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and today what I want to talk about, first up, before I forget about it and go on some random tangent, I am holding an intro competition right now, because as you notice, the roll into the podcast isn't great, so what I want to do is I want to find some sort of music to have just a roll in. I'm obviously going to talk over the music. I'm not going to have just an intro and then just go from there. So I am going to talk over the music, but what I want is just something that is preferably Creative Commons. Creative Commons is great because I can just use it however I want. I will pay for a license if it's just an absolute banger of a track, but generally I'd much rather prefer have something that is Creative Commons. But I will make exceptions for things that are really, really good. For example, if there was a really good Monster Cat song or something like that, I would make exceptions for that. I don't really want to pay a monthly license though. I just realized, literally as soon as I started the actual recording, my audio levels suddenly changed again. I don't know, honestly, how OBS manages to be this terrible, but anyway. So if you want to participate in the intro competition, there'll be a link to my Discord down below. If there's not already, there should be. I don't know why I would have forgotten to put that there. But yeah, I've got a few things that people have suggested. I'll bring up the Discord actually and see if we can find something in there that's not bad. Of course, Discord's going to update right now. Okay, we'll leave that for just a moment. Yeah, what I'm kind of looking for is something that's kind of upbeat, something something hip-hoppy would be nice. Similar to what obviously not the same, similar to what I'm using for the outro for my main channel. So yeah, we've got the thing open now. Let me see if I can find something good in here. I'll bring it up on my phone just so the audio is not as bad. Okay, so here's something. Green tea, Smith the Mister. Go. I don't want to play a Doritos. Doritos, you're not getting any of your ads played. See, something like this is fun. It takes a little bit to get into it, so I'd probably end up cutting a little bit. So, something like that. That's one of the options I had. I've got a couple others in here as well. I'll bring up another one, just so you guys have a bit of an idea of what I'm looking at. Obviously, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. If you find some, absolute banger that's a rock track, or honestly, even something that's classical, I would take it. But I am quite a bigger fan of hip-hop, so that sort of style is something that I'm looking for. I'm not sure when this one really hits the point for the good intro part. I don't need something that's super upbeat the entire time, but something that I think leads us well into the intro. Yeah, you see what I mean? That should pretty much give you an idea of what I'm thinking of. Now, some of the things I got suggested in my Discord, they're not bad, but some of them I'm not really sure if the people who suggested them have ever watched a podcast before. Which isn't to be mean, but some of them are really slow, and some of them don't fit for a podcast intro whatsoever. So, yeah, hopefully I can find something good that works, but I don't think I'm going to use any of the early suggestions. I might. So that first one that I showed you, that was Green Tea by Smith the Mister. The second one was And So It Begins by Artificial Music. So both of those are kind of what I'm sort of thinking of. Also, my drink for today, still not tea. Today we've got a almost empty bottle of Nippy's apple and blackcurrant juice because it needs to be drank. So I don't feel like getting a cup either, so we're just going to drink it from the bottle because that's the life I live. It's because it's what are we, 3 weeks into quarantine? I'm still working though. 3 weeks into quarantine or something like that. I don't even care anymore. No one else cares, so whatever. I'm not going to care anymore either. Even though I'm an essential worker, I guess I can join in on the not caring whatsoever about appearances. But yeah. They're actually really good. If you're ever in Australia, or anywhere that sells Nippy's juice, buy this. It's really good. It's really bad for you, but it tastes really good. Anyway, I should probably bring up my topics, because I thought the intro thing would go on a bit longer. So yeah, as I was saying, hip-hoppy stuff, I'm not really, as I said, electronic-y, hip-hoppy, you kind of get what I'm saying. It's got to be upbeat, got to lead us into the podcast, basically. Now, the reason why I wanted to do that, I've mentioned it briefly before, but I feel like just suddenly starting recording, it doesn't, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of that. I do like the idea of having a roll into the podcast. I know some people aren't a big fan of having music at the start, but generally I tend to prefer it. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. Obviously, I'm not going to just pick anything, so I'm not just going to like pick some absolute garbage and just keep it from there. I want it to actually be something good. So if nothing good comes in, then I guess we're not going to have we're not going to have an intro anytime soon. So just don't worry about that. If it is garbage, I'm not going to pick garbage. Anyway, I think we should move on from that. So just before, I was at the shopping centre getting some just random meat. Doesn't really matter what I was getting. I went to the butcher because there's a really good butcher there. If you're ever in the area, it's D&S Butchers. They are really good. They are probably the best butchers in South Australia. Anyway, as always, this happens every time someone asks me about a shirt like this. So when they have literally no idea about anime, the first thing they generally go to is that Pokemon? And I don't know how to answer that question besides just saying, no, you're an idiot. But I have to say it in a nice way. I try to explain, like, I don't try to explain what Toho is. I at least try to explain what a bullet hell is, and generally they can kind of grasp it from there, because even if you don't know what a bullet hell is, if you've ever played like any of the old arcade shoot-'em-ups, they're fairly similar. Like, a bullet hell is just an extreme version of that, so if you can understand that concept, then I think you can kind of understand what a bullet hell is. I don't even bother trying to explain, like, what's up with this character, but because that's way too much effort. I'm definitely not going to try that, especially with someone who I know has, like, no knowledge of anime, especially if they're going to think that this is from Pokemon. But, yeah, if you didn't know, yes, I actually do just walk around outside with shirts like this on. I don't care anymore. I used to, back when I first started buying shirts like this, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to walk outside with them. But you know what? I realized after a while, no one actually cares. So once I realized that, I was like, whatever, I'll just wear whatever. I've got this one, I've got an Alba one, I was supposed to have a Remilia one, but that Remilia from Toho and Alba from New Game. Anyway, I just want to clarify that. I ordered the Remilia shirt a couple of years ago. It never showed up. I don't know why. I don't know why. So that one just never showed up. It was from the same seller as well, so I'm not sure what happened there. It was over Christmas when I did order it, so maybe it just got lost and I just didn't bother chasing up on it. Didn't really matter. It was like a $30 shirt. I think it was $30 with shipping, actually. So I didn't actually care too much. But yeah, I do have a couple of others that are coming soon-ish. So, on a website that I'm forgetting the name of, there'll be a link to it down below. I keep saying I'm going to put links to stuff. I'll actually put that in my notes. But I've got 2 more shirts showing up. Link to shirt website. Anyway, 2 more shirts coming up. So if you've seen Kimetsu no Yaiba, you'd obviously know who the main characters are. And on this site, they've got a couple of designs where they cross the first generation starter Pokemon with some of the Kimetsu no Yaiba characters, and they look pretty awesome. I'm still waiting for it to show up. I'm not sure when it's going to be. I did order it like 2 or so weeks ago, but they did say it'd be like a 2 to 4 week shipping. So when those show up, you'll probably see them on a podcast first, because I have obviously like a 7-day backlog on the main channel. So you're not going to see it there first, unless obviously you don't watch this. If you don't watch this and you're watching... Actually, that didn't make any sense, did it? I feel like an idiot for just saying that. If you don't watch this, then obviously you don't watch this. Why did I even have to clarify that? I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway. So, yeah, that's kind of as far as that topic's going to go. I think... I don't know, I do want to get some more shirts at some point, because some of my old ones, like this one, I've had for about 3 years. It looks like I bought it yesterday. Like, I don't know how they've printed this shirt, but this is probably the best printing I've ever seen. There hasn't been any fade, hasn't been any color bleed, nothing. It still looks like I bought, like, exactly like I bought it on, like, the first day I got it. I don't know how, I don't know what's in this shirt. It's probably really bad for me to be on my skin, but I don't know, there's done something that makes this shirt basically indestructible. Obviously, I could, like, damage it, but when it comes to the actual printing itself, the printing is pretty much perfect. So, if I can... Does it say on the tag here who did it? Shamoe T. I will try to find more of their shirts, because whatever they're doing, they've done it well. I think I bought it off of eBay, and it was from, like, a third-party seller of their stuff, so I'll see if I can find it. They probably have, like, a page on, like, Alibaba or something like that. So I'll try to track them down and see if they have any awesome designs. I think when I was looking at them a few years back, they had a couple of Love Live designs, and obviously a couple more Toho designs besides this one. They had some garbage ones as well, but yeah, most of them, I think at the time, that would have been first generation Love Live, so yeah, yeah, it would have been. Maybe it was a bit longer than 3 years ago then, because I think Sunshine came out... When did Sunshine come out? I've just turned this into an anime cast now. If anyone doesn't care about that, whatever. You've already clicked off by this point anyway. Let's see. When did Love Live Sunshine come out? Love Live Sunshine. Sunshine came out in... Oh no, okay. It might have been 3 years ago. Sunshine was only 2019. I didn't think it was only that long ago. I thought it was way longer. Wait, no. Wait, 2019? Okay. Sure. I don't believe that for a second. I feel like it was way longer than that. Because I would have been living in the old house at... no, wait. How long was I in that place? I don't know. I don't remember. I think it could have... I don't even know. Here's the thing. When you watch seasonal anime, you'd lose track of stuff very, very quickly. You'll talk about something that... Like, I'll talk about, say, I don't know, Black Bullet. Black Bullet is a show that no one's ever heard of because it was garbage. But it came out, I think, 4 years ago, and it doesn't feel like it came out 4 years ago. For me, because I think that was the first season where I was watching stuff seasonally, it feels like I watched it like a few months back. But no, apparently 4 years. So you just completely lose track of time when you get into seasonal anime because you're always watching it week to week to week. Except for me right now. Right now, I'm not actually watching anything. Right now, I'm kind of just downloading everything and sticking it on an external hard drive so I can get back to it in a few months when I actually have time to, you know, go back and watch stuff. Because right now, when I'm not doing the YouTube stuff or the other library stuff and stuff like that, and I'm not, like, working on little things on my computer so I can actually have video topics, I'm pretty much just working on uni stuff. So... hopefully in a few... Actually, what week's now? I think it's week 6. Week 5 or 6 right now. So, I think next week is the study break. So, I've got a 2-week break where I don't have classes, even though I don't have classes right now. Because of the thing that we can't talk about. So, it's like a 2-week break from lectures being done. Actually, before we go off that topic, most of my lecturers are not even bothering to re-record stuff. All they're doing is taking their lectures from last year and then just uploading them. You're not doing anything with your time. Re-record them, because I've talked about this lecturer once before. He is possibly the worst lecturer I've ever had. And I've had some really, really bad lecturers. Now, the problem with this guy... So, being in computer science, I've dealt with people who've had, like, really strong Chinese accents. I've gotten used to that. That's fine. I don't really have a problem with that. The problem I have with this guy is he constantly yells. So, actually, no. It'd be one thing if he constantly yelled. He yells sometimes, and only certain words, and you don't know which words they're going to be, but maybe in the middle of a sentence, he'll just yell a word. And I think he does that when he forgets what the English word for something is. I think that might be what that is. Or when he's, like... trying to put emphasis on something, even unlike the way that like a native speaker would, where they'd actually, I don't know how linguistics works. Go to Luke's channel if you want to know about linguistics, but you understand how putting emphasis on a word actually works. The way this guy does it is he yells the word, which I guess technically works, but it is really annoying. Now, the other thing that's really annoying with what he does is, okay, here's a basic lesson for how microphones work. If I set up a microphone at one corner of the room and then I walk to the other corner, is the audio going to be good? And not if I'm using like a shotgun microphone. If I'm using a shotgun microphone, then yes, technically it could be good. If I'm just using whatever's built into like a MacBook, will it be good? If your answer is anything besides, no, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, then you'd be completely wrong. So yeah, that's exactly what that guy does. He will set up his MacBook at one corner of the room, walk to the other side, keep talking, and then expect it to be like picked up on the actual recording. I'm almost like, what I want to do is I want to send him like links to like lapel mics. Just buy a lapel mic. And the thing is, the worst thing about this is the uni actually gives all of the lecturers lapel mics. He just doesn't use it. So yeah, literally every lecturer is given a lapel mic to do their lectures. He just doesn't bother attaching it, or he just doesn't bother turning it on, so it ends up switching back to the built-in mic. So as you would expect, when he's like right near it, so if he's like right here, actually that's too late. If he's right here, then it sounds great. But if he's like way back here, then you can't hear anything. You probably hear it better with the Blue Yeti because I've actually set up my audio well, plus this room is small anyway. But if I go back here, you can probably hear me. You probably can hear me because the gain's still really high because it's a Blue Yeti. Blue Yetis just inherently have really high gain. I want to get myself a better mic at some point. Maybe when I get a couple more YouTube checks, then I'll do it. But for now, the Blue Yeti is fine. I know some people say the Blue Yeti is like overrated, but honestly, now that I have it, I don't have any reason to buy a new mic. If I was recommending a mic to someone, I wouldn't recommend the Blue Yeti. But because I have it, I don't feel any reason to replace it until I buy a proper condenser mic and I buy like a preamp and stuff. At that point, then yeah, I'll get something different. But for now, the Blue Yeti, that's how that word is said. The Blue Yeti is fine. But yeah, I was talking about my lecturer's god-awful audio. So yeah, he will just set up the recording on one side, walk to the other, and then just keep yelling. So you can kind of hear like words here and there, but most of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Luckily, what he's explaining is really basic stuff. He'll go over things like, this might not sound basic if you've never done a machine learning class, but he'll go over things like k-means clustering. I think next week we're doing some basics on neural networks. Earlier we did some stuff on joint probability and various types of probability that are important to machine learning. And if you've done a machine learning course before, this is all fundamental stuff. This is all just like recap pretty much. So even though you can't understand a word he's saying, if you just look over the lecture slides, you're like, oh yeah, I did that last year, didn't I? So yeah, it's not complicated. He's just terrible at explaining it for one, and also just you can't hear a word he's saying. So that's my life. I wish he would just re-record the lectures because I know he's not doing anything. None of the lecturers are doing anything. I know that they're not busy whatsoever. They can pretend like they're busy, but I know that normally they would be recording a lecture within this time slot. You don't have anything in that time slot unless you've suddenly picked up a hobby that takes up a bunch of your time. You don't have anything to do. Just do your job and re-record a lecture. But yeah, that's enough me ranting about how awful that is. What are the other lecturers doing? Right, I've got one course that does lectures like every 4 weeks or so. This isn't anything out of the ordinary. They literally just don't bother doing lectures most weeks, which is fine because that's my honours course. So in the honours course, they obviously don't really have much to say most of the time. You'll have, obviously, the times where you have to do presentations, and then the other lectures are not really anything. So, yeah. With that course, though, they're still forcing us to come in. I don't know why. There's no reason for them to keep us, to force us to keep coming into uni, but they're like, oh no, we're going to have our presentations in person for some reason. Even though you're not supposed to be doing presentations in person, just stop. we'll use Zoom. I know Zoom is garbage, and I know that we're probably going to have to switch away from Zoom because there's like a massive security hole in that, but we'll get back to that in just a moment. My nose is really itchy right now. Just let us do the presentation online because that'll be easier. We don't have to pretend like we actually care to be there. We can just like not bother wearing pants, and that just makes everyone's life much easier. But yeah, I was saying just before, there's been a couple of security research groups, and not just security research groups, also the FBI have looked into Zoom and have basically found that this thing is effectively a massive security hole. It's no worse than just going and installing malware on your computer, basically. So there are ways in Zoom that you can literally get root access to a device, which is not good, and you shouldn't be able to do that through a voice chat application or a video conferencing application, whatever it is. And there's a bunch of other stuff, like the fact that there's basically no validation, so you don't need a user account to join a Zoom call, and there's nowhere to stop people joining them by the looks of it, so you have to basically just let people join. It also seems like people who didn't create the call may actually be able to kick the host and then take the rights to the call, which is also not something they should be able to do. But yeah, it's not a good piece of software, so stop using Zoom. I've got a video coming out shortly, it might actually already be out, where I talk about Zoom. Before someone complains about it, no, it's not the same thing as Luke's video. It's a very different video. Once again, like with the thing that we can't talk about, I wanted to talk about Zoom. I'm allowed to talk about Zoom. Anyway, we're not going to get back into that. If you want to see me ranting about the people who think that I steal Luke's content, go check out last week's video and go check out the video I did on my main channel about it. But yeah, we're not going to get back into that today. So, with that class I was saying about just before, where the lecturer, you can't understand a word that he's saying, I got like barely a pass on my last assignment for that course. And I have no idea why. So, he complained... Oh, my juice fell over. I've got the lid on it anyway. He complained that the explanation I gave for... I think it was for discretization and normalization. He complained that the definitions that I gave were wrong. And the examples I gave were wrong. When the definition was his definition from the lecture slides, slightly reworded. And the examples was taken from the program that he told us to use. So I don't know how in the world I managed to get like I think it was a 60 or something in that assignment, which is really low for me. And barely a pass. But that assignment's only worth 10%. I don't know why it was even an assignment, really. It should have just been like a tutorial class. I'm not really sure what the purpose of it was. So, but honestly, at this stage, I don't really care about my grades. If I just pass, that's all I really care about, so whatever. Because honestly, if I did go and find proper dev work after this, no one cares about your grades anyway. And I've got a couple of people who can probably hook me up with a job in certain places. I'm not going to say where, just in case that didn't happen. But I'm not too worried about finding anything after uni anyway. So, because obviously, yeah, grades don't matter. If you think your grades matter, your grades don't matter. They matter. The only time your grades matter is when you're trying to do stuff within uni. And I guess if there's a candidate who's pretty much the exact same person as you, if you're competing against your clone, and your clone got slightly better grades than you, then I guess your clone might get the job. But besides that, there's not really any reason why anyone would care about your grades. But yeah, for uni, they do matter. So if you want to go and do like a master's or a PhD, yeah, obviously, like, making sure your grades are good are going to matter. But if you want to go out and do industry work, no one gives the slightest damn about your grades. I ended up getting a low score for me as well. This one was entirely expected. Anyway, the presentation that I mentioned just before, or the class that I said that does presentations in person. So, I had a presentation, 2 weeks ago, and I just got my grades back on Monday, last Monday. So I'm recording this on Sunday again, the last Monday from when I'm recording. Actually, it'd still be last Monday. I don't know why I had to clarify that. Yeah, it'd still be last Monday. Anyway, I got a 68 on that presentation, which is entirely expected for me. I am terrible at presenting. I know some people seem to think my content is good. When I talk in person, though, I can't actually clip stuff out. So my main channel, you might notice, lots of jump cuts. And the reason there's a lot of jump cuts is because I will go off on tangents, I will forget what I'm saying, I will basically lose track of what I'm saying, things like this. So when I'm talking in person, or I have no ability to cut, you might notice that my speech completely falls apart. And it's probably fine on the podcast, because on the podcast, I can just ramble about stuff. If I go on some tangent, doesn't really matter, like I'm doing right now. If I just ramble about stuff like that, not a problem. It becomes a problem, though, when I'm trying to talk about technical stuff. That's when I tend to start tripping up on my words. And it's happening right now as well. When I'm trying to say something very specific, that's when I tend to start tripping up on stuff. So even if it doesn't come off like as obviously in the podcast, yes, that's a serious problem I have. So I got a 68 on that presentation. So one of the things I got marked down on was roles not being clear. So it was a presentation on my honours project. We were basically having to explain what the requirements for our project basically were. And we had to explain like what our roles in the project were. So he said my role wasn't clear. I specifically said that I am the project manager, and I gave a few examples of what my job in the project will be. And he was like, role's not clear. Don't know how you can possibly say that. He did the same thing for my team member as well, who also said, I am participating as a developer. Here are some of my tasks. Role's not clear. So I don't know exactly what the problem was. He also tripped us up for not mentioning the fact that the thing that's happening right now is happening. Even though when we submitted the slides for this presentation, basically, we weren't confirmed that the uni was going to be shutting down. So I lost marks for not being able to see the future, which is also great. And also, the fact that it was a 6-minute presentation was really, really limiting. So we're doing this as a full year project. So there straight up wasn't, like he said also that we didn't include a proper timeline. It's a full year project. We have 6 minutes. It would take more than 6 minutes to do the timeline. I don't know how in the world you're supposed to do that in 6 minutes. Honestly, this entire project is set up in a really terrible way though. So they constantly talk about agile. If you've never done any software development, the current buzzword is agile. Everything has to be done in an agile way. All of the meetings have to be agile. Agile development, agile management, agile this and that. But the thing is that this course and every single other course is run using a much similar to a waterfall methodology. So if you've never heard of waterfall is basically where you do your planning, then your next stage, and then your next stage, and your next stage, and then your next stage, and then your next stage. Agile is more like you do a bunch of different cycles for each different thing. So you do your testing, or your planning, development, testing, and deployment or something, all in the same thing, and then you'll keep doing that over and over again. Waterfall, though, is you do planning, you do development, you do testing, you do deployment. There is no overlap between them. So the problem with that is it doesn't really work unless you really heavily specify exactly what your requirements are, exactly what every single stage of the project, you have to do it perfectly. That's why waterfall doesn't work on web development projects, because you typically have a moving development platform and you're not really sure about the exact things that you want your final project to work for. It makes sense for like a military context, a medical context, where you have a stable development platform, or it's very, very important that everything you do works perfectly. Like, for example, in a medical context, if you're building some sort of, I don't know, CAT scanning machine, for example, you want that to work. You don't want there to be any mistakes with that. That's why waterfall is very important for that. And also the fact that when you're doing something like that, the development platform's not going to move. You know exactly what you're developing for. Or if you're doing something like a missile guidance system, you know exactly what you're developing for. It's not going to be used on anything else. It's used on this, and you know exactly what the version of the software is going to be, you know exactly what the hardware is going to be. Nothing's going to change between the start of the development and the end of it. At least it shouldn't. Or it's going to be far less likely, though. Yeah. With web development, though, this is why Agile is important for that. Because, say, for example, you start a project. By the end of the project, there's probably going to be 10 more versions of Firefox out. So the entire framework that you're building onto might have completely changed. There might be tons and tons of new web standards to use by the time you actually finish the project. And this is why doing Agile for something that moves quickly actually makes sense. But as I was saying before, the uni always talks about how important Agile is. And then with all of the projects, and especially the honors project, they don't give a damn whatsoever about Agile development. So it gets very difficult to explain how what you're doing with the project maps onto their waterfall expectations. So I think they do need to restructure the course, and they aren't restructuring a lot of the early year courses. So I think first and second year have been redone. But they need to do it for the honors project as well, because it's just a mess right now. It's not as bad as it was when some of the people who graduated, I think the 2 years before me, ended up going through. That was a complete mess. This isn't good, but it's less bad. Yeah. But yeah, with the uni stuff, I've got another course, my research methods course, where I've actually been reading a lot of stuff that I find fairly interesting. So the assignment we're doing for that right now is actually we have to do a bunch of annotated bibliographies, which is basically read some paper, explain what the paper's about, explain the author and things like that. But the topic we're actually doing is should artificial intelligence systems have rights? And we've kind of pushed that more towards should they have free speech rights, and maybe we're going to include copyright and patent protection, because they kind of link together. If you... it's very easy to link freedom of expression and copyright and patent law. They kind of link together really easily. So we're thinking of focusing the paper on that. So I've been reading a lot of paper about US case law, and there has been some bizarre, absolutely bizarre cases that have happened in the early days of copyright law within the US, especially when, especially in the context of things that the author didn't actually do to author the paper. So what I mean by this is there was a case where this is just, you're not going to believe me if you don't know about it. I'll see if I can find the name of it. I'll put it in the description. But there was a case in the, I think this was in England actually, where, no, this one was in the US. Yeah, this one was in the US. There's a different one in England. So in the US, there was an author of a New Age religion. So she and her partner ended up writing this book that ended up being this New Age religion. And they were being basically guided to write this book by the thing they called the Voice, which they ended up claiming at some point ended up being Jesus. Now, the interesting thing here is that they took it to a publishing company, and the publishing company basically took it off of them. And that's because they didn't claim that they were the authors. Who they claimed was the actual author was they claimed that Jesus was the author. So what they tried to do was basically file a copyright with Jesus as the author of this book. And obviously, that's not gonna work. That's... yeah. I don't think I need to tell you why you can't assign copyright to a ethereal entity. And it seems like the US courts agreed with this, because basically their conclusion was that copyright only applies to physical entities. So if you are a ghost or if you are a god, then you cannot have copyright protections. And England did the same thing. So there was an English case where this was with, what's it called, spiritography, where basically someone will say that they've been possessed by a ghost and then they'll write some stuff down. So someone wrote this book, took it to a publisher once again, and the publisher tried to take it. Now this person, instead of saying they tried to, or they were writing this for Jesus, or Jesus compelled them to write this time they said that they were possessed by a ghost and they were writing, I think, 2,000 words per hour on paper, and they didn't know any of it. They'd like put a blindfold on So they completely blindfolded themselves. And they were supposedly writing 2,000 words per hour. They didn't know anything about what they wrote. And then they tried to actually file copyright for the ghost. And you know what? It didn't work, because once again, you can't file copyright for an ethereal entity. So there are some weird cases like this in early copyright law, and it's actually really interesting. Now, it sounds more interesting when I'm telling you about it than when I'm reading it. The actual case law and the papers that actually look through the case law are mind-numbingly boring. But talking about what actually I've found out about this has been interesting. There's been another one where I read this paper, and basically it was about how machine-authored works are not a thing and they shouldn't be. So this person was claiming that you should never be able, even if you use an AI tool to basically author a piece of work, even if you have no hand in actually making it, the AI didn't author it. And basically the entire argument was, and the author literally said this in the introduction. The first two points that she included were straw men. And then I read the rest of them, and the other three were straw men as well. So literally this paper was arguing against a position that no one held. I think it was talking about how analog works are different from digital works, which basically claimed that within US copyright law that they're not, which is fair. It also talked about how sequential algorithms aren't going to be... if you have an AI with a sequential algorithm, then it's unclear who makes that, or who makes the finished work, basically. And there was a couple others in there, I don't remember the exact ones now, but basically the entire paper was arguing against the strawman because it didn't at one point talk about superintelligence, which is literally where the entire argument begins with AI-authored work. No one's claiming that you should, or that iMovie, for example, should be able to claim copyright for putting a blur effect on a video. No one's claiming that. That's ridiculous. But the thing that people are claiming is that super intelligent beings should be able to have basically copyright claims over the work that they produce if no human was involved. And basically, the papers that were in favor of it basically ended up concluding that the easiest way to do this would be to treat, or basically owning an AI system as similar to like a work for hire or a employed to invent sort of structure that already exists within the US. So right now, if you are employed for like a game developer, for example, there we go, that's how sentences work. You basically forfeit all your copyright claim over the work that you produce. So any code that you produce while you're working for a company like that, when you basically are employed by that company, you're basically forfeiting the right to everything that you produce while at that company. And this is pretty standard for any development studio, or just really any sort of work at all. Like, the same is true if you're a carpenter. You lose the copyright protection to the work that you produce while you're at work, and that goes to your employer. So that's kind of how that's set up. That's how they kind of avoid basically having conflicts like this, because otherwise what would happen is if someone's at a game developer, for example, and they make some really interesting sort of AI method for controlling enemy characters, they could then leave the company and then try to file a patent for that. And if you basically forfeit your copyright protection to that work as soon as you're employed to that company, that kind of just avoids that entire hassle, which I entirely understand why it's set up like that, and it makes perfect sense, to be honest. If I was setting up a new country, I would do the exact same thing. But yeah, I was not expecting to go on a tangent about AI rights for that long, but I think where we're going with this paper is whether it's a good idea or not, from the papers we've all read, I think we're going to be leaning towards the being in favor part of it, just because that seems to be the most logical conclusion. Now, I don't think, obviously, that some like weak AI system should be given authorship protection or anything like that. But if we have something that is super intelligent to the point where it is indistinguishable from a person, then I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't have to extend those rights to that entity, basically. Now, the other paper I ended up reading, I think this was the last one I read, because we had to read 6 of them and do 6 annotated bibliographies. The last one I read was about computational creativity, and basically explaining how pretty much all creativity can be basically explained away as an algorithm, which does take away some of the romance of it, but it does make sense when you do actually go and read through the paper. Yeah, so that's pretty much my journey through learning AI, whatever I'm doing, AI right stuff. If I get too close to if I get like here, it's very easy to start clipping the mic. So if I reach down to like put my drink down, the audio starts to almost clip, which is really annoying. I did, if you haven't seen the sound check, I moved the mic a bit closer, so this is like, literally it's right here, where my finger is touching right now, that is where the mic is. I might be able to move it slightly closer, there we go. Right now I'm touching the shock mount, so that's how close the microphone is right now. Normally I would have it like back here, so it'd be a bit further away. I don't know if that really, I guess, cleared it up. It's about the length of this pen away, maybe a bit further, so yeah, about, whatever, yeah. Anyway, I've moved the mic closer, which means I had to turn my gain down a little bit, but it also should reduce some of the audio, some of the echo. Really, though, the only problem, or the only way I can deal with that echo is just to deal with this backable, which at some point I will, when I come up with a solution for how I can actually set it up. I still don't know how I'm going to do it. I was thinking of getting like a big board and putting it up, as I was saying last time, but there might be an easier way to do it, like, I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I was saying this in the sound check, I could hang a bit of string from basically my closet over to my curtains, and then just hang a thing off of that, and that could work. That might not be the worst idea. I might try that out, to be honest. Actually, even just hanging a sheet like that would probably work. I'm not sure, though. I'll work something out, basically. That's pretty much the conclusion of what this entire thing. I will work something out at some point. Not right now, though. Once we get more of the YouTube checks, which the first one is coming in soon. So if you don't know, with YouTube, you don't actually, they don't have to pay you a cent until you're making over $100. So they won't even let you take your money out until you've made over $100, which is really annoying. But I get why they do it. So if you are making, or if you're on at like 1,000 subs, just like at the minimum point of basically passing the point where you can get paid, you wouldn't be able to take money out for like 4 months, because right now at like 4,500 subs, I'm just over 100, so just over $100 a month. I might talk about the exact amount at some point. I'll save that for like a dedicated video on it, but I've just hit the point now where every single month I can actually extract money, which is really nice, because there's, I do want to spend like just some money on improving some stuff. I don't want to spend tons. Like, I don't care about upgrading the mic right now, but as I said, like with the foam, that'd be nice to have a bit of extra money to do that, or just little things. I do want to get a lamp that I can put back there. I did talk about this last time as well. Get like a lamp with a colored globe, or just like an RGB globe, and then I can use that, give a bit of colored light in that direction, just so it I guess livens up the shot a bit, because my bed is white. I've got a white light over there that you can probably see. Actually, I might. No, I'm not going to do that now. I was going to say I could move it around and you'd be able to see how it changes, but then I probably won't be able to get it back to where I need it to be. But that is literally sitting on a drawer that I've pulled out. So that's how messy my setup is right now. But that's the sort of stuff that I want to get. I also want to get a second webcam. Now, you're probably going to be like, why do you need a second webcam? Now, the problem is that the webcam built into this laptop, it's not good, basically. Plus, when I switch over to my desktop, I'm not going to have that. So if I do a podcast with a second person, they won't actually be able to see my webcam. So the way that I'm actually recording this is I have a webcam stream going to OBS, and then I have a separate webcam stream going to Discord or wherever it is. There might be a way to... If someone knows, actually, is there a way to do like a sort of loop back webcam? If there's a way to do that, then that'll be awesome to do. Because the only other option would be to record the clip separately for... Or, I guess, how could I do it? I could record Discord directly. So I could drop the camera stream to OBS, record the webcam from Discord. It would look a little worse, so that's the only reason I wouldn't want to do it, because obviously it'd be a bit smaller, so I wouldn't want to do that. I think the better solution is to get a second webcam. So, as I was saying before, I kind of went off track. I want to get a second webcam because the one built into my laptop, I can't really do proper white balancing and stuff with it. So what happens, is that if I switch over to my built-in webcam right now, I will look like a ghost. If you go back to the first episode of the podcast, I actually did show that off. But yeah, it doesn't look good. So if I get a second one, it'll probably be another Logitech C920 or something. I might get something a bit different. I don't know. Because I do also want to get like a camera. There's a bunch of stuff I want to get. The camera is kind of there so I can do... It's just so my regular vloggy stuff actually does look better. And because I do want to go out and record some stuff from time to time, and it would be nice to actually have a good looking camera. But if I did have a camera, I could set it up to actually record these. I assume... I've seen people do it, that you can have like a DSLR or something like that, or a mirrorless, actually be used as sort of like a webcam. So I'm pretty sure there is a way to do it. I'll have to look into it. If there's not, then I'll just use it for my just my regular recording stuff, not the podcast. The podcast, I'll still use a webcam. Also, the webcam on the podcast should look a little bit better when I do get my new desktop, though, because I've had to pretty much crank down the settings because this thing's a little slow. Now, it's like an i7, but it's like a laptop i7. My new desktop is going to be a 3900. 3900X. That'll be the CPU in it. So that is 12 cores, 24 threads, which is ludicrous. So my first CPU, I didn't get into gaming on PC until pretty late. So I think my first CPU was one of the older AMD CPUs. It was like a 6-core... 12 thread, which is still pretty impressive for the time. I think it would have been 6 or 7 years ago. I don't remember what it was called. I shouldn't have bought that CPU. It was much better to buy an Intel CPU. I don't know why I bought that. I think I bought it just because it was cheaper, and it was a very bad purchasing decision. But yeah, now that I have a bit of extra money, I'm going to make better decisions. So the webcam should look a little better when I don't have to crank down the settings, because in OBS, I've got my CRF level set to like 15 or something, which does make it look a little bit compressed. I have to obviously have it there a bit because Linux OBS, is a little bit garbage. It's not as bad as some of the older solutions, but it's a bit garbage. Hopefully with the Ryzen though, it won't be a problem. I really hope it's not, because if it is, I don't know what can actually run OBS. Because when I'm recording this, I'm sitting at about 76% CPU usage, 77 degrees. So, yeah, that's my life. And it just spiked up to 99%. That's good. The other thing that when I'm recording is it's always desynced when I'm doing the podcast. And I think it's because OBS doesn't know how to handle images on Linux. So I've got two images right now. So I've got the image where it's like the background image, and the tech over T thing, that side. The tech over T thing is like its own separate image. So I think that OBS on Linux just doesn't know how to handle it. That would explain why I'm sitting at such a high CPU usage. It's not as bad when I do my regular content. But this thing... I don't know. I honestly don't know how people do stuff with like older ThinkPads, to be honest. I think if you used something like Simple Screen Recorder, that would probably be a bit easier, but you couldn't really easily do transition changes and stuff like that. I guess with the webcam transition, what I could do is I could do what Luke does. Do it a bit better than Luke does, because I don't like the fact that he treats his webcam as a tiled window, which is... Don't do that. what I would prefer to do if I was going to do it myself is I would have my webcam being recorded as its own separate little thing, make it a floating window, and then define some basically points across my screen so I can have one up there, one down there, there, and there. Basically have it so I could bind those the same way I bind them within OBS and make it so I could easily move my webcam around. That is how I would go about doing it. I think the way Luke does it is a little bit janky. He just treats them as like tiling windows, which obviously is going to be a slight problem. But yeah, that's how I would do it. I might do a video on that when I work out how to do it, actually. I don't know how he's doing the webcam stream. I think there's a way to do it within like MPV or something, but I've never actually looked into it myself, so I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, that could be kind of fun, actually. I do like OBS. But it has its fair share of problems. Specifically the fact that it is really heavy. Now, I'm surprised that it's not actually really heavy with RAM usage, and I think that's because I turned off the cache. But with the CPU, and it just, yeah, the CPU, it just turns up as far as possible, and then because it's just a laptop, basically, it gets really hot, and yeah. It's not, okay, it is actually kind of hot to touch now. It's like 78 degrees Celsius, which, you know, not the best for a laptop, but at least it's not throttling. It's just under that point of thermal throttling. If it did start throttling, this would be unwatchable. And I've had older content that did do that, and I have no idea why it ever did that. That's kind of the reason why I like doing a lot of the terminal stuff. Partially because I do find it useful, and also partially because it's just easier to record on my laptop because it's not going to be like completely thrashing my CPU. I can't really do, I know some people have suggested, hey, can you do some like Wayland content? But I can't set up a VM on my system and actually record it properly. So, yeah, when I have a system, oh, my nose. Yeah, that should be better. When well, I don't know why my nose is so itchy right now. When I have that new system set up, it's going to have like 32 gigs of RAM, the 12 core, and some random Radeon GPU. It doesn't really matter what the GPU is. I should be able to do VM content then, which will be awesome because there's some stuff I do want to check out, specifically things like Wayland, and it will then allow me to do videos on display managers, which I can't do right now because there's no way to record my desktop when I don't have my X server running. So the only way to do that would be to do it within a VM. And that would also allow me to do things like an Arch installation and things like that, which some people have they've suggested, and I just can't do a video like that right now because I just don't have a way to. I know you can do like a fake Arch install, but besides that, there's not really a good way to do it. And even then, that would start probably lagging my system as well. So when I have this new desktop, then I should be able to do some pretty cool stuff. I probably won't. I probably won't do it at all. Like maybe my. I don't know what I'm gonna, I have some ideas for 5,000 subs. What I'm thinking of doing, I'm not going to do an Arch install. I know some people are like, do an Arch install. There's like thousands of videos on Arch installs. Luke's done an Arch install. That's how I install Arch. Literally, if I do that video, what it will be is basically me watching Luke's video, then me telling you everything that Luke told me, and then people saying that I copied Luke. And I'll be like, yes, I actually did. Because Luke's just copying the Arch Linux wiki as well. And it's an Arch install. You can't really do it originally. So, I might do an Arch install at some point. No promises. Maybe 10k? I don't know. I keep talking about 10k in my main channel. I have started to stop doing that. I don't know if it'll be out by the time this goes up, but what I've started doing is reading out my Patreon names, or my patron names. So that's what I've started doing at the end of my videos, similar to the way that DT does it. Right now I only have 4 of them though, so I can kind of read out everyone's name, and it's not a big deal. Obviously though, at some point I will have to stop doing that. But for now, it is nice to be able to read everyone's name out and basically just say, hey, thank you for thinking that my content is worth like $4 or $5 a month. I don't know why you do that. You have a really weird taste in videos, but thank you for thinking that. So that's pretty much what that ends up being, and I think that it's nice to be able to thank people like that. I don't want to do the way that like the Linux Gamer used to do, where he was basically having like 5 minutes at the start of every video before he actually got any content. I think that having it at the end is probably reasonable. So that's what I'm going to do. I probably will thank them during the podcast as well, because I have linked, if you haven't looked at my Patreon for the podcast, it's actually linking to the same Patreon, so I do need to update the description and stuff on it, because right now it kind of just talks about my main channel. It doesn't talk about the fact that I do a podcast, so yeah. I could split them. I don't really see any benefit of doing it. If I was doing a podcast with someone else, then I guess it would make sense to split the podcast into like a separate thing. But because I'm not, I don't really see any benefit of it. It would just make it like a hassle to manage my Patreon and manage all of my taxes and stuff. Those are going to be fun this year. Because I'm going to have, okay, so I've got the AdSense money. I haven't sold any of my crypto yet, so if I did, I would have some of my library income, which I'm going to funnel through my business, because that money is, like, my library income is relevant to my business, so I'll funnel that through that. Then also, if I was to sell any of that, I've got my BitTube currency as well. If I go over to Steemit, then I'd have my Steemit currency. I'd also have my, if I go over to, not Steemit, Steampeak, which is on Hive right now, I could also be on Steemit and have both of them, and DTube. So if I was on DTube, okay, what's that? DTube, Steemit, Steampeak, so, what's that? What's DTube's coin called? I don't know what I think it's just called Dcoin or something, or DTube, I don't know. So we've got DTube, Steam, Hive, Library, or LBC, and then, Tube, and USD. So I would have like 6 income streams, and that's just from my content. Patreon. And I've also got a PayPal as well if you want to use that. So I haven't got a single donation on that though. And then I've also got some Bitcoin, Ethereum, and yeah, okay, there's okay, my dad. Yeah, that's a mess, isn't it? So that's gonna be fun. I haven't sold most of my crypto though, so most of that isn't even going to be touched. I think mainly this year it's going to be the AdSense money, and if I need a bit of extra cash on the side, I can sell a bit of my LBC. I don't think I'm going to sell any though, because it's only at like 1 cent right now, and I'd kind of like to save it until it's at like minimum 10, because right now I think it's worth like, actually I don't want to say how much it's worth. I'll just say a lot. I've got a lot of LBC, not like to the point where some of the whales are at, where, okay, there's one dude who has started up an account where he is basically selling supports, so I think it's legit. People are saying that they're actually getting the supports, and one of the guys in the library Discord wants to do the same thing. I think it would be cool if library did endorse this themselves. Basically, before I go off track again, what's happening is that there's an account that is run by one of the massive whales, and what's happening is he's set up some videos where he's saying, if you pay me 300 LBC, I will put a 30,000 support on your content. And basically the way library works is it's set up as a whale algorithm right now, which I don't like. Pretty much the more money you have, the higher in trending you are. I think to get onto the top of trending right now, it's something like 60,000 LBC, which I think is like $600 right now. Obviously, you can, with the supports, you can take them back, so you don't actually lose any. But if you don't have 60,000 LBC, then you're not going to get to the top of trending. So this channel is basically making it so the people who don't have much LBC actually can buy their way onto the top, which I think is a really good idea, because it starts getting a lot more of the currency moving. Now, this will depend on what this person's actually doing, whether they're legit or not, or whether they're going to take the money and run. So, yeah, hopefully it is legit, because I think it'll be a really, really good benefit to the community, because as much as I like trending all the time, it would be nice to see some of the smaller channels actually get an opportunity to actually get into the algorithm. Because right now it's just not possible. And yeah, I think it will be cool. Now, where was I even going with this? I don't even know. I don't know. Right. I don't know. Where was I going with that? Whale, who has lots of LBC. LBC is 1 cent. I don't know where I was going with that. Right now, I think, yeah, it is worth 1 cent, at least last time I checked. I'm probably going to hold it to about 10, minimum. And I'm not going to sell all of it then anyway, because I want to keep it until I can buy my crypto Lambo. I joke about the crypto Lambo, but to be completely honest, if I could get a crypto Lambo, I would love it. Like, let's say $10 LBC. $10 LBC, no. Oh, with what I have now, $10 LBC won't keep me to the end of my life. I think if we go in a couple of years when I have like 400, 500,000 LBC, $10 LBC will pretty much set me for a while. That'll be 5 mil. But hey, $20 LBC, $50 LBC. I like, honestly, I've said this on Library before, but if it ever hit the point where Library just mooned and we had like $50 LBC, $100 LBC, I don't care what happens. I'm gonna go live on an island somewhere. You guys can handle this yourself, because I've got millions at that point, and I don't care. So until that point, though, I'm gonna keep making content. I'm gonna keep enjoying it. I'm gonna try to keep making stuff that you guys enjoy, and hopefully I can bring some cool people on the podcast. Now, I haven't asked him yet, but my mate Tamor, I think, will be more than willing to come on. I might bring Marty back onto the podcast, and yeah, that'd be fun. I did talk to DT a bit. I don't know, he's probably not going to come on until the podcast is a bit bigger, which is entirely fair. He's got like 50,000 subs. He doesn't really get any benefit coming onto a podcast that has 60 subs on YouTube and 700 on Library. That I entirely understand. I'm honestly surprised if he even gave me the time of day, to be honest. And that just goes to show how much of like a good character DT is. So maybe one day I'll bring DT on. If you don't know DT, DistroTube, one of the bigger Linux channels. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Luke's coming on the podcast, because Luke is a boomer who lives in a cabin in the woods. So I don't know if he'd ever be willing to come onto the podcast. I reckon there's a couple of other guys I could reel in, though. If you've never heard of him, there's a guy called Learn Linux. There's like 7 Learn Linux channels. The Learn Linux that's pinned on my main channel on YouTube. He makes really... I think he's pinned. He should be. If he's not pinned, he should be. Because he makes really, really good content. I know why he doesn't get many views, though. And it's because he's really lazy. All of his thumbnails are literally the same thing. He doesn't make thumbnails. That's part of the reason why he never gets any views. Because all of his videos look the same, and YouTube really punishes that. But his content is really good, especially the stuff where he does more technical stuff. He is way better at this than I am. And when he does more of the fun stuff, that's honestly really good as well. I feel like he's a way better creator than I am. Honestly, he deserves the position that I have. I don't. Like, he does way better content than I do. Who else could I bring on? Actually, I think that's kind of the entire extent of my connections. There's a couple of guys on Library I reckon I could reel in. There's a guy called Retro Edge Tech who has like this massive beard, like it goes down to here. I really respect him. He's another Linux creator who kind of does similar content to what I do and also to what Luke does. I would say he's also way better at it than I am, but I think he's got a really small channel on Library. I don't know if he's on YouTube though, but I reckon I could bring him on. And there's a couple of guys in the Library Discord who I think I could convince to come on. I would like to get Scammer Revolts on. He is probably one of the bigger channels who actually uses Library. Like, I know Veritasium's on Library, but Veritasium actually doesn't use Library. And like, what are some of the other big channels? Tim Paul, he is on Library, but he doesn't use Library. A lot of the Linux creators are kind of active in the community, at least to like some extent. No, sorry, the biggest channel who actually cares about Library is EEV Blog. He has like 700,000. Does he? No, wait, how many subs does EEV Blog have now? He's a electrical engineer from Sydney, I believe. How many subs does EEV Blog have? I was gonna say 700,000, but that doesn't seem right. No, that is right. Okay. 713,000. He's probably the biggest channel who actually cares about library. I don't think I'm getting him on the podcast anytime soon, but I reckon I could get Scam Roll Vaults on. He seems like a pretty cool dude, and as I was saying, there's probably a couple of other people I could probably hook in. I know there's some of my mates who I've said can come on the podcast, and I just didn't arrange it. Some people who, especially with the early stuff, the reason I started doing the solo episodes, where they kind of like said they were going to do it and then they got busy. I might be able to bring some of them back on now that, you know, they're probably not doing much. So I can probably do that. But yeah, that's kind of it for the guests. What was I think there was something else I wanted to say. Do I want to save that till next week or do I want to talk about it now? I guess I can give a bit of an update of the supermarkets as well. So as of what is it today? What is it today for you guys? Tuesday or Thursday? As of Monday of the week that this was uploaded, a lot of the supermarkets here now have limits, like limits on the number of customers. So I think my store has a limit of 200 people being in the store at once. So if more than 200 people like try to come into the store, they have to wait in a line, which we should have been doing for ages because you can't social distance in my store because the aisles are tiny. So yeah, if we have more than 200 people, they have to start lining up, which is going to be interesting because it was bad enough last Sunday. Because what happened is Woolworths, they decided to open early on Sundays. We didn't do it though. So what ended up happening was people thought that both of us were going to be open. So there was like 400 or 500 people just waiting outside the store at 9 in the morning on a Sunday because they thought that we were going to be open, but nope, we don't open till 11 a.m. So they were there for 2 hours, which I feel bad for you, but also don't do your shopping first thing in the morning on a Sunday. That's when everyone's going to be there. I get that you're trying to get products that are probably going to go out, but come on another day. Saturday we're open early. Friday we're open early. You're not doing anything, unless you're an essential worker, you're not doing anything anyway, but you're not doing anything on the Saturday either. So I'm sure you can find some other time when there's not 400 other people here. So yeah, besides that, I don't think there's really much else of an update to be going on with the supermarkets. It's pretty much just all hands on deck right now, except for the days where we get no stock. So we're kind of jumping between, we have tons of load to fill, and then the next day we have nothing. So I've had my shifts cut, and then other days we've had to call like 7 people in. So I don't know why we can't just more like average it out over the week instead of just getting big like deliveries like on certain days. I think they want to make sure that every store sometimes gets big deliveries, so they kind of are doing it like this. But yeah, maybe I'll give another update next week, but right now nothing has really changed except for the person limit. So we're still missing stock as always. Nothing has changed there. We're not really getting anything new. I think we got like toilet paper twice this week or something. So just keep going, I guess. We did have a pizza night the other night though. That was fun. So to thank us because we've been doing our job basically, the management decided to throw a pizza night, which was lovely. So it's a really rare occasion where you actually get appreciated working in a supermarket. Not from both the customers and also from the management. So it is nice that we did get that. I think I had like 4 slices of like meat lovers pizza or something, so that was good. To be fair, it was only Domino's pizza, so it's not like high-class pizza, but honestly, free pizza is good pizza, so that's all I really care about for that. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. I was going to go into this topic as well this time, but I think, because we're at like a bit over an hour now, I don't know if I'm going to do it. Because I've got this topic where I want to talk about the worst code base that I've ever seen, and the worst code base I've ever seen is for my honours project, so I might save that for next time, and then go into like a big tangent on that, because I don't really want to go too much longer on this. I've got some other stuff I want to do today, like, as I was saying before, I've got those annotated bibliographies to work on. So, I want to go do that. And, yeah, because my pen, wait, This pen I've been playing with the entire episode, it just broke. Okay, how did that happen? Yeah, no, it's like fully broken. That's like snapped off. Okay. Well, that's good. I guess I need a new pen now. I have a bunch of pens. What was I gonna say? Alright, I was gonna say that I'm less tired now, and then I yawn. I didn't realise that daylight savings started? Started, yeah, I think, wait. We flipped over from whatever version we were on from before to the one we're on now. So I ended up getting an hour more sleep, which was lovely, because I woke up at 8 AM. I was like, wow, I'm not tired. This is a first. I thought it was just because, like, oh yeah, wasn't staring at my phone until, like, I went to bed. No, it's just because I slept for an extra hour, because I woke up before my alarm, which is weird. I never wake up before the alarm. And it was like 7:45. I was like, what? Why am I awake? So I went back to sleep for a bit longer. Woke up. I was like, I am not tired whatsoever. I did something right. Turns out, no, didn't actually do anything right. It was just daylight savings had changed. So, yeah, no, daylight savings would have started because ended? I don't know. I just noticed that my clock's changed at some point. So the only thing that gives me any indication that we've switched is the clock in my car. So half the year, it's about an hour off. The other half of the year, it's right. I never bothered to fix it. So, yeah, that's the only indication I have that switched. Because everything, I have that it's switched. Because everything else, basically, it does it automatically. Except also my microwave. So I also noticed the time when the microwave was wrong, which also threw me off. So I wasn't sure what happened there. I just assumed the power went out, though. I didn't really assume that the hour had changed, so yeah. I think what I've been doing with these, because they take so long to render, I've actually been rendering them like as I go to sleep. Sometimes I render them while I'm doing stuff, and that's a bad idea, because this thing, it like throttles up real hard when I try to render stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is have it so it renders overnight, and then I don't have to worry about it. I can sleep with my laptop fans going hard. I've done that plenty of times, so that's not a big deal for me. Yo. Sorry, I need you to make a car, please. I can do that. Sorry. It's all good. I will be back in just a moment. This is the most amount of editing I'll ever have to do in one of these podcasts. My housemate had to go out just now, and I had my car parked behind hers, and we've got a really small carport, or garage, whatever you want to call it. So I had to go move that. Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Right. Something boring about rendering video. I don't remember what it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so because we have a really small garage here, so it's like barely a 2-car garage, so you can't exactly go around the other person. So if I'm parked behind her, then we have to like rotate the cars, and she had to go to work first thing in the morning anyway, so I would have had to rotate the cars at some point regardless, because I didn't want to be awake at like 8 in the morning to move my car when she had to go to work. Anyway, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk about in the podcast, to be honest. I don't think there's really anywhere else to go, unless I wanted to go really deep into another one of these topics, which, to be honest, I think I kind of want to save them to next week, because we've been going for like, I don't know, a bit over an hour and 10 minutes, so I think that's plenty for today's episode. I'm looking for my list of patrons. I don't know where it has gone. So, where is it? Video notes, that one. So, before I end the podcast, I would like to thank Andrew, Road, LQ Larry, and Zilver who helped make this channel possible. So, you guys really, really help out. So, I know it's only $14, which doesn't sound like a lot, but really, it's adding up over time, and it does actually bring me closer and closer to be able to do this, just, even if it's not full-time, just be able to focus on it more than other things, really. Because if I got to a point where even I could say, just work like 5 hours a week at my other job, and just do this as the main thing, that would be awesome. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to the point where I can do this full-time. That would be insane. I would love that. But if it could get to the point where I could say, I don't really feel like working today. I'd rather just focus on my content creation. You guys help me get closer and closer to that every day, so I really do appreciate it, and I honestly can't thank you guys enough. So most of you are in the Discord. I know Andre's not, even though he's my highest tier patron. Road and Zilva are. I don't know about Oculari. Oculari he might have a different name in the Discord or something. But yeah, you guys really help out, so if anyone else wants to join that, obviously you don't have to, especially with what's happening right now. I entirely understand if you just don't have extra money to put aside to just pay for random content online. But if you do, then feel free to throw me a few bucks, even if it's like a dollar, whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't have to if you don't want to, but as I was saying, yeah, I do really appreciate it, and you guys really do help out. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk about in this one. I did mention at the start of the podcast the intro competition, so that will be running until I find an intro, basically. Yeah, or until I get bored and decide I don't want an intro anymore. So, there's no, like, cutoff date if you want to submit stuff now, if you want to submit stuff, like, 2 weeks from now. Obviously, if it's 2 weeks from now and I've already found an intro, then tough luck, unless it's really good. If it's better than what I have, then I guess I can switch over, but I'd rather have something and then just stick with it, because I think that kind of helps build an image for a podcast. If you have like a style, not just for a podcast really, for just any content creation, you build a style, people come for your sort of content. So yeah, that's pretty much that. So I think that's pretty much everything for episode 6. I don't know if there'll be someone on for episode 7. There could be, there might not be, there probably won't be, because I don't know. I know I've got people who, as I was saying before, I probably can bring on, whether they have, like, schedules that can match up with mine, especially the guys who are overseas, like Tamor is in Canada, and Learn Linux, I believe, is from the UK, so obviously you've got that weird time zone difference, especially with the Canadian time zone, because I don't even know how different that is. It's probably like 12 hours or something dumb like that. So, yeah. I'll see what I can do. If I can bring a guest on, I think that would be fun, especially if it's one of these guys who I really like. So I think that's pretty much everything for this one, and I'm out.